Perception really plays a huge role in your career, as the most biggest example is Elizabeth Holmes. She was able to convince rich, successful old men that she is capable of doing what other scientists who have professorships and PhDs at Ivy Leagues cannot solve. And that's because of how she portrays herself. She wears a black turtleneck and she has messy hair so that she can look like she is well put together but doesn't care that much about her looks, so that it shows that she's very smart and she thinks about smart things only and not care about trivial things like her looks. And she always have this look in her eyes where she really like open her eyes and stare into your soul, and I find that it's very uncanny and almost sociopathic when she looks like that. But I guess it portrays power, and for some people it probably makes them trust her more because she's over portraying like her eyes. But for the people who already know science knows that this idea is impossible. But she also managed to convince quite a few scientists and engineers to come work for her company. So in some ways, maybe there are some scientists that actually thought this is possible, or maybe they also have questionable morals like she did as well. But having zero knowledge in biochemistry, she could only convince other people who have zero knowledge in biochemistry to invest in her. So, therefore, her board of directors and her investors are mostly people who are in the political parties, and they don't really have background in science. She couldn't really get any traditional science investments in her company. And she also lowered her voice to talk like this with a baritone voice. And it's tries to imitate a man's voice, and she thinks that gives her more authority and that gives her more, I guess, stance and confidence to convince all of these men that she knows what she's doing. But that also shows a lot of biases in us, because if she imitates a man's voice and having a more baritone voice and have her hair tied up to emulate more of a man figure, and she also like wears what Steve Jobs used to wear to give a lot of these association, that means that there's inherent bias in us that truly does believe that a man is a more authoritative figure, which also is more prevalent in history because people do have more leaders who are males. So it kind of is a reflection of what we think as well as deem as successful, and these investors are just as fault for believing her. But it's a good lesson to learn about perception.